All right, man, peace. So, in the aftermath of his subpar performance in his latest golf tournament outing, golf superstar Tiger Woods was basically interrogated by one of the members of the super liberal media, mainstream media. A reporter from the New York Times decided that he was going to try to ambush Tiger Woods with a series of questions about his previous affiliations/associations with current President of the United States, Donald Trump. Well, Tiger Woods handled all the questions extremely well. He kept his composure and exuded a very calm demeanor. His answers were tactful, and he did a great job. But what was most apparent to me while watching the video footage of Tiger Woods being interrogated by that idiot is that the mainstream liberal media and the mainstream liberal sports media, they just don't know what their jobs are anymore. And everybody is a frustrated political pundit, and you have to be very careful who you try to have serious conversations with and who you divulge your true feelings to, your true perspectives to, because a lot of these people out here are bugged out of their fucking minds, man. And they're ready to start a confrontation or an altercation with you over a disagreement over politics. And all politics is a big shit show. A big nonsensical storm of liars competing with liars to see who can sit in a throne where they're not even really in rulership. And so many people are triggered and manipulated by the mainstream media. And this is why Trump has been able to galvanize his constituency with many of his factual assertions about the media. Beyond that, many of the more prominent personalities on ESPN have fallen down the super liberal rabbit hole. And most of them are not going to make it back out because very recently ESPN has hired a man by the name of James Pitaro to take over the leadership of that network. And he has declared that we're going to stick to sports. So this is why we see the termination of Mr. Mel Hill. And I also believe that very soon we're going to see the muzzling of Mr. Max Kellerman, a.k.a. Mad Max, the super liberal Caucasian Jew. A lot of these idiots on ESPN do not understand what's right around the corner waiting for them. People are quickly tiring of misinformed or uninformed idiots on a sports network inundating them with their feelings about a politician. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Nobody wants to hear it. And now they've tried to put Tiger Woods in front of the crosshairs and make him another proverbial black male sacrificial lamb if he does not answer a political question correctly. This is why I tell you, brothers, that when the super liberals approach you and try to force their ideas on you, the first thing that they're going to do is try to allege that you're a quote-unquote coon or a sellout. If you do not agree with a lot of their ideologies, that's what they do. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
I'm Doug Kazarian. This is Sports Center right now. One of the most famous golfers ever recently spoke about another guy who's one of the most famous ever to walk a golf course. Tiger Woods addressed the media yesterday following the final round of the Northern Trust Open, fielding questions about President Donald Trump.
I've known Donald for a number of years. We played golf together, and we've had dinners together, and so yeah, that's I've known him, pre-presidency and obviously during his presidency.
And kudos to Tiger Woods for not acting as if he was very familiar with Donald Trump. And if they do have some type of relationship with one another, there's no need for him to sell him out just to satiate the super liberal mainstream media. So good for him.
At times, especially 2018, I think a lot of people, especially people of color, immigrants, feel threatened by him, by his policies. He's thrown himself into sports debates in terms of ways.
Now, the media member from the New York Times stated to Tiger Woods that many people of color, quote unquote, feel threatened by Donald Trump's policies. This was an attempt to program Tiger Woods into understanding that if you do not tread correctly in how you answer my question, I'm going to make you look bad. I'm going to make you look like a sellout. What he's not understanding is that Tiger Woods don't give a shit if he looks like a sellout, because for the most part, most of the liberal and pro-blacks have looked at Tiger Woods like a sellout for the past 20 years. So Tiger Woods is like, I have nothing to lose here. I'm just going to answer the question how I want.
What do you say to people who might find it interesting that, I guess, a friendly relationship with him?
Well, he's the president of the United States, and you have to respect the office. And no matter who's in the office, you may dislike personality or the politics, but we all must respect the office.
Let me say this very quickly. Tiger Woods has the right to his perspective. And beyond that, what the mainstream media has tried to do is convince the so-called black man that Donald Trump is so much worse for black people than all the previous presidents combined. And Donald Trump is no worse for so-called black people than Barack Obama was, than George Bush Jr. was, than Bill Clinton was, than George Bush Sr. was, than Ronald Reagan was, than Jimmy Carter was, than whoever was, going all the way back to George Washington. Donald Trump is no worse than anybody else. He's no more racist or less racist than anybody else. I don't live my life worrying about how a white man feels about me. And a lot of these lame so-called pro-blacks, they run all around the internet talking about, oh, I think that so-and-so is a sellout for supporting Donald Trump. Why the fuck are you worried about Donald Trump for? When's the last time that you called your son and asked him how his day was going? You're all over the fucking internet talking about Donald Trump, and you don't know shit about politics. You don't know shit about how this country is ran anyway. And you all triggered about a politician. Go make sure that your daughter got her damn homework done. Damn pea-brain ass Negro. The fuck out of here.
The president commented it today on Twitter. Quote, the fake news media worked hard to get Tiger Woods to say something that he didn't want to say. Tiger wouldn't play the game. He is very smart. More importantly, he is playing great golf again.
I agree with you on that, Donald Trump. I think that Tiger Woods did a great job in answering that question.
Again. Now back to First Take.
All right, let's do some fake sports news. Tiger says
Well, that's what you guys do for the most part. That's why I have to make these videos. Because for the most part, all you guys do is fake sports news.
Donald Trump is the president of the United States, and you have to respect the office. Stephen A., do you agree with that statement from Tiger?
I hate that it comes from him, but I do agree with his statement. Because he's not talking about respecting the man. He's talking about respecting the office that.
That's right, brother. And let's be quite frank. Not only do you respect the office, you also respect the man. Because I have no doubt that you, Stephen A. Smith, voted for Donald Trump before this last selection/election. You could fool some people, but you can't fool me, bro. People like you and Charles Barkley and a lot of you cats that get on TV talking about Donald Trump, you know damn well that you voted for him. There's no way in the world that I'm going to believe that you voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton.
That man holds. And I draw the distinction there. I do understand the distinction. And I think most of us in America need to understand it whether we like it or not. We don't have to like it. This is the United States of America. We have the right to freely protest peacefully, I might add. We have the right to do all of those things. And obviously we've exercised that right since the day that President Trump was, elected into office, and the date of the inauguration. There were protests going on all over the country. And people were appalled by it. A lot of people were. But the reality is...
Yeah, isn't that amazing? People were so appalled when Donald Trump got selected/elected for the quote-unquote White House. But they were not appalled when Barack Hussein Obama was elected/elected for the White House. And this guy has allegations of being involved in having some of his homosexual lovers set up to be killed, allegedly. Look up the names Larry Bland and Nate Spencer, two homosexual members of that Trinity Church that Obama used to attend while in Chicago. Look up the name Larry Sinclair. I mean, people are always talking about this president and that president. None of these presidents have ever been for the so-called black man. None of them. And I say this all the time. The so-called race in America that has the lowest voter turnout are the Asians. And they also have the highest net worth per capita. Because they're not as concerned with politics as they are with maintaining their culture and making sure that they maintain the cultural ties that they need to be successful as a people. Our people are overly concerned with being validated by the Caucasian. That's why we stay at the bottom. And the number one reason why we stay at the bottom is that we reject the Most High.
That 62 million plus voted for him. There's an electoral college vote that he won. And when you look at the presidency of the United States, I did not say the president, I said the presidency, the chief executive officer of this nation and the power that he has. People have to wake up and recognize whether you like it or not, you have to deal with it. I sit across from a man, Max Kellerman, who's, I don't always agree with Max. Obviously, it's a debate show, but I know how passionate he is about this subject.
Yes, he's very passionate about this subject for now, until Mr. James Pitaro puts his foot up Max Kellerman's ass like he did Jemele Hill. So for now, Max Kellerman will be allowed to run his mouth.
And I I know that from his position, he comes from a very informed place in terms of his views and somewhat ideological tilt on matters. And
No, sir, he's not informed. He's just more informed than you because he's less lazy than you are to actually get information. But he takes whatever information is relevant to his ideologies and his feelings, and then he leaves out the rest. Because that is what Caucasian Jew liberals do, so that they can indoctrinate so-called black people into their nonsense.
And I respect that. But the flip side to it is that as American citizens, when this man can sit up there and could initiate wars, and he can influence our economy.
Absolutely. And to be quite frank with you, if we're just going by the facts, what he's doing with the economy has been unbelievable. The American economy is in the best place that it's been at in years. And in regards to initiating wars, he has yet to initiate one war. All that he's done is maintain the same wars that were initiated by George Bush Sr. and have been carried on by Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., and Barack Obama. America is the militaristic arm of the global imperialist power. That's what it is. That's what America is. It's America's job to lead the attack on many of the quote-unquote third world countries to make sure that they can reap the natural resources. That's all war is ever about. War is never about helping a disenfranchised race of people or nation of people, or we're going to help this tribe. They're being subjugated and oppressed by the government of that country. All that is nonsense. They use that as an excuse to take the natural resources of that land, or because the president or prime minister of that foreign country owes the international bankers money. All the U.S. military is a debt collection agency. That's all it is.
And he can make things happen in a bad way as much as a good way, obviously. You have to respect that power and deal with folks accordingly. And I think what we're finding far too often in our society are people who are so appalled by his presence that they want to ignore the power that the office holds.
Well, truly what people are appalled by is the fact that the direction that Obama was taking the country, which was extremely to the left, quote unquote to the left, in regards to pursuing super liberal, i.e. Luciferian ideologies pertaining to feminism, i.e. the woman over the man, transgenderism, which is the veneration of their god, the Baphomet, as well as the embracing of homosexuality and lesbianism as a normal thing, as opposed to a mental issue. Because he steered America so far in that direction, they truly thought that the next president was going to be a woman, because they said, there's no way in the world that you're going to put a nigger in the White House and not have a white woman in the White House. So to basically return to that old patriarchal energy with Donald Trump assuming the mantle of president, that was kind of a shock to a lot of the people in America who thought that they were finally moving away from male hegemony. So it depressed a lot of super liberal women. A lot of these women out here had to receive an antidepressant prescription when Donald Trump was selected/elected to be the next president of the United States.
When you do that, it becomes incredibly, incredibly dangerous, particularly with an individual who shows no compunction whatsoever to exercise decorum and will react, whether it's with a tweet or anything else, at the drop of a whim. I think you have to be careful about that. I don't think Tiger meant it that way, and I'll get into that a little bit later, Max, after I let you speak. But overall, in terms of the statement of respecting the office, I've always felt that way about the presidency, whether George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, or anybody else was in there.
And that's my basic contention. That's my basic issue, or my basic contention against what Max Kellerman is undoubtedly going to say. He's going to try to make a distinction between Donald Trump and everybody else. And when you truly understand what all these presidents have done, all these previous presidents have done to the so-called black community, Donald Trump is no worse than any of them. None of them. Even though Barack Obama may have been a nice and comfortable face for the so-called black community, he did so much damage in promoting homosexuality and lesbianism and female supremacy on the so-called black community.
I totally disagree with what Tiger said, strongly, and I disagree with your analysis here. And I just want to say something, because I know it came from a good place when you said that
Max Kellerman said, I know it came from a good place. In other words, nigger, I know you're trying hard, but let me lead you to the light. Because I'm the Caucasian Jew liberal that has been leading you liberal Negroes to the light for the last 100 years.
And I'm informed, but I don't have I have an ideological tilt, in fact, but I keep that off the air. For example, the great John McCain passed. Ideologically, I disagreed with him.
You mean John Songbird McCain?
Fundamentally about many things, but he was a great man and a great American.
How would you know that? Have you met him? Did you know John McCain for you to say that he was a great man? Isn't John McCain the same politician that voted against Martin Luther King Day in Arizona for years? Max Kellerman? I have no issue with that because Martin Luther King is another Luciferian pawn. But for a lot of conventional people in America that love and venerate Martin Luther King as this person of peace and unity, doesn't it seem strange that John McCain voted against Martin Luther King Day? Maybe he's not as great a man as you're trying to make him out to be.
And had he won the general election, whether or not I voted for him, I would have been proud to call him the President of the United States, my president.
Okay.
Yes, because he was a globalist pawn. And this is what I've stated about Donald Trump. There's little to no doubt in my mind that there's some type of separation between the Donald Trump or Donald Trump faction and sponsor and the conventional globalist international banker sponsor. Am I saying that Donald Trump is some type of maverick or good person? Absolutely not. But the way in which the mainstream liberal media is attacking him, there's no doubt in my mind that there's a detachment there on some level.
Ideology has nothing to do with my commentary on Trump, especially as it relates to sports. Nothing to do with it. In fact, I know some people don't believe that. That is the truth.
Well, you're going to have to qualify that very soon, because I have the sneaky suspicion that Mr. James Pitaro is going to be calling you into his office very soon, Mr. Max Kellerman, because he's not going to allow you to fuck up ESPN's money. And I think that really the only justification that you'll be able to use when you do get called into his office is that you happen to be one of the co-anchors or co-debaters on the highest rated show on ESPN. That will most probably be your saving grace. That'll probably be the thing that will save your job.
We're talking about someone under multiple federal investigations.
Yeah.
About possible conspiracy with a hostile foreign power to fix a U.S. election. His close associates, several of them, already been convicted or have pled guilty. He's essentially, at this point, a co-conspirator.
Brothers, when you have the opportunity, please look up the cabinet members of just about every president since FDR. They've pretty much all been members of the Council of Foreign Relations and or the Trilateral Commission. They've all had their hands shown to be extremely dirty, involved in embezzlement, murder, extortion, so on and so forth. Am I saying that to make an excuse for Trump? Absolutely not. All I'm saying is that he's no more or less wicked than any other president, but he has been put under far more scrutiny for whatever reason.
You know, to multiple felonies to which his lawyer has confessed. I mean, we're not talking about a normal situation here.
No, actually, Max Kellerman, yes, we are. Because for any of us old enough to remember the Bill Clinton presidency, he was under just about as many investigations as Donald Trump, and for just about the same amount of reasons.
So, when Tiger Woods...
subject for another day, because...
But except that we are talking about the current office holder.
Yeah, but
I want to say something about what Tiger Woods said.
Okay, go ahead.
It really bothers me. I am angry at what Tiger Woods said.
Of course you're angry. Once again, brothers, the Caucasian liberal will always get upset at the liberal black whenever he shows any departure from the ideologies that the Caucasian liberal has taught the liberal black. I've stated this numerous times in regards to Max Kellerman. He embraces the philosophy, even if he will not admit it, of the white man's burden. He believes that it is his job, it is his task to elucidate you on matters of consciousness and of societal mores, things of that nature. He's there to be a guiding light to you. And if you reject him, he's going to be quote unquote disappointed in you. And he's going to show that disappointment at first by trying to belittle your intelligence and by trying to claim that you just don't get it. And then after a while, he'll call you an idiot. And then if you continue to refute his assertions, he'll call you a nigger.
Because it is a thoughtless statement dressed up as a thoughtful statement. And it
No, sir, it's just a sincere statement. That's all it is.
Either holds in contempt the intelligence of the people who hear it, or else it's just a stupid thing to say.
Ding! Didn't I tell you guys that?
Let me tell you what I mean. If to say that the office You must have respect for the office. Tiger, be clear. Are you saying that the office therefore confers respect onto its occupant, its present temporary occupant?
Well, clearly the office confers respect unto the occupant because according to the protocol of the American voting system, supposedly Donald Trump was put into office by the people. So intrinsically, the office would confer that same amount of respect to the occupant, Max Kellerman.
No, having respect for the office means, principally in my view, is the office.
It's not about your view. First, we have to establish, do you respect the voting process? Because to claim that you don't have to respect the office because you don't respect the occupant, that's you saying that you don't believe that the voting process is as good as it needs to be. Because truly you're condemning the American people as much as you are Donald Trump.
The office holder should have respect for the office. We are all set to a standard. We're held to a standard of behavior. We in our jobs, right? People in their daily lives. The president, if anything, is held to a higher standard of behavior. It is not
the standard of behavior that I hold the president or any leader to is to make sure that he's doing his job. As the president of the United States, he's acting basically as the director of the portion of the global corporation known as the United States, aka the Corporation of Homeland Security. That's his job. His job is not to make me feel as if he's conducting himself in a high moral way. If he's not doing so, then it's up to the checks and balances of the U.S. government to make sure that they bring him back in line. As a so-called U.S. citizen, once he has been quote unquote elected or selected, I'm supposed to understand that it's due to the due process of the voting process that he was put into that office. So in order for you to castigate him or condemn him, first you have to castigate or condemn the voting process if you don't want to respect the office because you don't like who's inhabiting the office. So the issue to me is pretty clear cut. And as I've told you brothers already, I don't make much of a distinction between Donald Trump or Barack Obama or George Bush Jr. or whoever. When we just look at the metrics, the economy is the best that it's been in a very long time. These people are worried about some chick that he's sleeping with and investigating possible collusion with the Russians and the notion that he's been involved in laundering Russian funds. That's a whole other issue. Let me say this. All of these presidents have been involved in some nefarious actions involving money. Should that exonerate Donald Trump? No, it should not. But hold everyone to the same standard. I don't get involved in politics because I really don't give a shit. It's not going to have anything to do with the redemption of the so-called black man. For the so-called black man to be redeemed, he has to understand where he's at. We're in captivity. This is not our rest. The so-called black man has to get himself together so that he can get his woman together. Because right now they're using your woman against you. That's what people like Max Kellerman do not want the so-called black man to concentrate on. They want you to concentrate on politics.
Not such that we have such great respect for the office that no matter what the behavior of its occupant, we must therefore respect its occupant because of the office. No, Tiger Woods you said it's being slick. Here, he's being slick. We must respect the office, therefore that confers respect to the occupant. Tiger, is that what you're saying? If that's what you're saying, that is a stupid comment.
No, sir, that's not a stupid comment. What Tiger Woods is saying is that once a person is able to ascend to the office, you're respecting the voting process, meaning that the American people, in concert with the Electoral College, chose Donald Trump. That's the bottom line of it. So you don't respect the voting process, Max Kellerman, and you're trying to act as if all your energy is just against Donald Trump. You're really mad at the American people.
I don't, but I don't even know if he believes that that's what he's saying.
First of all, we don't know what Tiger Woods believes. He's Camblination. He's not black. When he got arrested, he was black. He was listed as black on the report. So let's understand that. Tiger Woods...
Right, but what does that really mean, Stephen A. Smith? Black is not a race. And a lot of so-called black people, and I'll probably be covering this in another video, a lot of fake pro-blacks and liberal blacks are upset with Tiger Woods for stating that he's Camblinasian. First off, whenever you're dealing with people who have multiple lineages in regards to racial lines, there's always going to be an inward struggle within them. So-called black people, I've said this in the past, American blacks love to act as if they're going to liberate people in regards to their racial understanding. And so-called American blacks have the lowest level of racial understanding of any race. Our people are the only people who try to force everyone else to accept that their race is a color, and they have no idea what the hell they're talking about ever in life on that subject.
Woods, that's the issue that the African American community has always had, because obviously from an historical perspective, you know, if 1/3 of you has a darker hue, a darker pigmentation, you know, the bottom line is you are black, and it is that simple.
Absolutely. So in other words, which is common with liberal blacks, you take the so-called white man's ideology about the quote-unquote one-drop rule, and you try to blackanize it. This is what liberal blacks and pro-blacks do. That's why I always tell you, brothers, pro-blacks are really pro-white. They take the so-called white man's ideologies and they try to blackanize them. The so-called Caucasian stated that if you have quote-unquote one drop of black blood, that means that you're black, quote-unquote. And what pro-blacks do is they try to enforce that on our people, as opposed to saying that's not correct. This is what they do. This is why I always harp on them so much, because they're so full of shit. The white man taught you that, and you're trying to impose that on Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is very confused. There's no such race as Cobbler Nation. You are whatever your father is. So the question to Tiger Woods is, what is his father's real lineage? That's what he has to trace back. But you certainly cannot be concerned about so-called pro-blacks and their nonsense about it said black on your police report. Who gives a fuck? The police report, that's a corporate document. We live in a corporate society.
Well, you get it, it ain't even 1/3. I'm just throwing it out there. 1/8, exactly. So what I'm saying to you is that clearly you are perceived as being a black man, and even though...
Well, Stephen A. Smith, you could be perceived as being anything. Does that make it the truth? Or do you seek out the truth? Now, sometimes perception is reality. Sometimes it is. Other times, perception is part of delusion. Are you willing to seek out the truth, or are you willing to just subscribe to a pseudo-reality that was created for you to exist in so that you stay under control mentally? Once again, so-called black people in America are the most ignorant when it comes to racial distinctions and designations, but they're always trying to impose their beliefs on other people.
Even though you didn't want to disassociate yourself from your mother's ethnicity, who is Thai, I believe, the bottom line is...
And his father is also part Asian as well, Stephen A. Smith.
Is that that's the reason why he took that position, but black Americans haven't respected that for Tiger for quite some time.
Who gives a shit what so-called black Americans respect? Like, no disrespect. Our people should not be worried about what somebody is saying they're so-called racist. Our people have to get our own shit together. Who gives a fuck what so-called black Americans respect about what Tiger Woods had to say? Who gives a shit about what Tiger Woods had to say? Our people are so caught up in what a celebrity says about any damn thing. Give me a break.
They haven't heard Tiger speak on a plethora of issues pertaining to having a social consciousness on many...
How about this? How about our people be more concerned about what the father in your household has to say about society than a man on television? How about that?
The occasions, that is something that people have lamented as well. But as it...
Yeah, they've lamented it because so many of our people have low self-esteem and they live through the television.
Pertains to this particular statement, again, I'm not going to take it as far as him conferring, as you would say, to respect the president itself, even though you're playing golf with him and all of that other stuff.
Yes, and your black ass would play golf with Donald Trump if he invited you as well. But you just try to keep that a secret. That's what you would do.
Considering how divisive people consider him to be. What I'm saying is, I think as American citizens, I'm thinking about congressmen, I'm thinking about senators, I'm thinking about elected officials, I'm thinking about the checks and balances in our democratic society that we have in place to police and to check this individual. Not to mention the fact that you have people, not just in the media, but beyond. We have several avenues to bring the ire of our nation upon this man because of how we see him conduct himself. But in the process of doing so, we have an obligation to be responsible with our rhetoric and beyond.
No, he has a greater responsibility.
No,
he's failing that.
No one's questioning.
But see, this is what I'm saying about Tiger that I don't like.
I'm just saying I totally agree with you about what you're saying with Trump's ultimate responsibility.
Right.
I'm just talking about Tiger.
Right, but here's what I don't like about Tiger. Tiger, if you want to say, I respect this guy, say it. If you want to say you continue to socialize with him, or you socialized or played golf with him in the past, or you won't say something negative, or you won't stand up, say that because you like him or because you respect him. Say that. Don't.
Who are you to tell Tiger Woods what to say? Maybe he said what he meant. Once again, the Caucasian liberal, particularly the Caucasian Jewish liberal, they get extremely incensed when the so-called black man will not regurgitate the ideologies that the Caucasian Jew liberal teaches them.
Don't try to play this shell game where you say, well, the office, it's not that you have to respect the person, but
You also have to remember that Tiger Woods' father was a member of the U.S. military. And when I say a member of the U.S. military, he saw action in Vietnam. I'm already on record as saying that Tiger Woods is a monarch athlete. That's another video for another day. But there's no doubt in my mind that Tiger Woods has a lot of military programming ingrained in him, meaning what? He has a strong level of devotion to the government, to the flag, to the national anthem, to the patriotic aspect of America. And someone like a Max Kellerman, who's a Discordianist, someone who loves confusion and chaos, he's just not going to grasp that.
you must respect the office, because Tiger, then what you're saying, without saying it, he's saying, but the office confers respect onto the person. If not, it's a meaningless statement.
You're saying that, but here's where I'm coming from, Max.
The respect that Tiger Woods is talking about is the respect for the voting process. I cannot say that enough times. That's why whenever you quote-unquote met the president, that was supposed to be a sign of great honor if you were a U.S. citizen, because what was implied was we quote-unquote put that person into office. So he was a reflection of the will of the American people. At least that is what the claim was. I'm not going to go back and forth about the legitimacy of that sentiment. I'm just saying that's what the claim was. So that is why people talk about the solemnity of the office.
I remember in 2000 when Al Gore went up against George W. Bush, and obviously, you know, don't get me started with how that went down and how George W. Bush ended up being the president of the United States.
Absolutely, but people seem to have forgotten that, Stephen A. Smith. I remember that George Bush Jr. was the former worst president of all time. And now you see so-called black people talking about him like he was a great president. It just seems like our people are too overly infatuated with the president, period. And that's why they get so psychologically damaged based off of what somebody is supposedly saying. But you know what? You know what the fact of the matter is that the mainstream liberal media does a very good job of making you think that every so-called black person is caught down this binary thought rabbit hole where they're extremists of either they're left or right or quote-unquote liberal or quote-unquote conservative or quote-unquote Democrat or quote-unquote Republican. A lot of our people are starting to wake up beyond that. And once again, there's going to be a reckoning at ESPN because of their incessant obsession with political talk. People are getting tired of it.
People were in an absolute uproar. And after a few days, the nation was called upon to respect our system, to respect what goes on in our country.
No, brother, actually, you're utilizing some revisionist history. If I remember correctly, after George Bush Jr. was elected/selected in 2000, the people were in an uproar because of the issues regarding what occurred during the actual so-called voting. But what allowed George Bush Jr. to attain some level of respect from the American people was the staged event known as 9/11, where he was able to stand in as a beacon of strength in the aftermath of 9/11. And that carried him through his first term and actually allowed him to get reselected/elected for his second term in 2004. That's what happened.
How we handle it, and we were reminded of the democracy that we are and how things are cyclical. It ain't a dictatorship. He ain't gonna be there forever. You can get him up out of there in 4 years if you want to. You can get him up out of there in 8 years, you know, at the most. This is how you look at things sometimes, and I think that that's right. And if you're called upon to do that on many occasions, because there's plenty of times where black folks have had a problem with some of the things that are going on in our nation and some of the elected officials that ended up in office. And we were called upon to respect our society, to respect our democratic system, and to respect the office, even while spewing vitriol at the individuals because of their actions.
It's fine to say respect the office. I don't mind that. But
that's
the way Tiger is using the phrase, as I said, he's being slick about it.
Okay.
He's saying, respect the... Why do I continue to socialize with this person? Because I respect the office, and therefore you must respect the person because the office confers respect for the person. No, it doesn't.
No, all Tiger Woods is saying is that he has a relationship with Donald Trump, and he's not going to let pressure that is put upon him by the liberal media change up or fold up, and good for him.
He's trying not to upset anyone. The people that respect the president don't, and that's why he was strategic in using the word the office. He's just turned his image around. He plays.
Once again, this is another attempt by the liberal media, this time the liberal sports media, to proverbially lynch the so-called black man. They did it with Dak Prescott. Now they're trying to do it with Tiger Woods. We're going to ask you a loaded question, and however you answer, we're going to rake you through the mud. If you say you hate Trump, all of a sudden you alienate a large demographic of the United States. You also alienate yourself against the so-called president. If you say that you don't care one way or the other, then you're going to be called a coon and a sellout. So there's no reason why these questions should be getting asked to athletes. Their job is to perform and entertain the American populace at large, and that's it. They're minstrels, but they're being put through this ritual for the entertainment of the media.
Plays golf. I know what he's trying to do.
And not only that, he's an international figure because he's globalized. He's traveling all over the world to play golf. Like you just pointed out, Molly, he's got his checkered history. He knows he's been seen with Trump, et cetera, et cetera. And more importantly, we don't bring this up enough. There are a lot of people out there, no matter how appalled they are by this man in office, there is this ingrained belief that that's in-house stuff, even though it obviously is not. You go to speak ill of your president outside of this nation is almost sacrilegious to a lot of people.
Well, let me just say quickly. If Tiger meant what he said, that is a thoughtless comment. There's nothing really contained there. It's a stupid.
No, sir. If he meant what he said, all that means is that you disagree, and you're another triggered Caucasian Jew liberal.
Comment. If he didn't mean what he said, if what he's doing is actually playing it safe, then me and people like me are offended by the comment because you're playing.
Right, but who gives a fuck what you're offended by? That term offended has become such a trigger word in modern day society. Everybody's supposed to be so concerned about what somebody else is going to think when they speak their true mind. It is what it is.
Playing on our intelligence.
And that's fair.
You're talking as though we're all stupid.
And it was well articulated. He has never been one that wanted to be socially conscious, and clearly he doesn't want to do so.
He's playing much better golf.
It has nothing to do with social consciousness. But once again, it amazes me how easy it is for so many of these non-black people to tell so-called black men what they should think and how quote-unquote socially conscious they should be. When they say socially conscious, meaning you have to go out of your way to put women above you and to make sure that you put homosexuals and lesbians above you as well. That's all social consciousness is, because when it's spoken from the quote-unquote liberal perspective, the so-called black man has to be at the vanguard of making sure that he maintains the hierarchy on the liberal side, and the hierarchy on the liberal side always has the black man at the bottom. On the conservative side, he does not even exist. But on the liberal side, he's at the very bottom. All social consciousness or / activism is telling the black man that he should have a big mouth, hold up a sign, and beg everybody to give him a damn hug. That's all that should mean.
Golf, though, until very recently.
Yeah, he is. Speaking of sports, he was the favorite.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see what happens in regards to this issue pertaining to Tiger Woods, as well as Donald Trump, because that storyline I don't think is going to go away. None of their storylines are going to go away for a very long time. So peace.